The business that I'm talking about today is Tiiko. And Tiiko is an acronym for Translating Information into Knowledge Objects. And I'm delighted to be here today and delighted to talk about the company. Okay, now we're on. Knowledge is 3D. We think multidimensionally. We know things in various dimensions and we can put them together, but no matter what search engine we're using, it's 2D. We receive information from any search engine that we're using vertically, and that's an issue. That's the problem. Now, the human brain itself is composed of many networks, and those networks contain at least 11 dimensions. Not just 3 dimensions, but 11 dimensions, so think about it. And why is multidimensionality important? Well, it's important because we're stuck in old technology, and that technology has existed from the time of the Sumerian tablets, okay, where everything was displayed vertically. The Egyptians had their papyrus scrolls. Again, information is presented vertically, and we even use the same word today that the Egyptians used, scroll down, on our computer screens. We need multidimensionality because we need to manage big data. And we talk figuratively about immersing ourselves in data. But we have the technology today with AR to immerse ourselves in data, not just figuratively, but literally. And that's what this technology does. In addition, without having a framework for our thinking, we don't have context. And without context, the data that we receive vertically has no meaning. And that was Stephen Hawking's primary criticism of AI, is that natural language processing in AI did not convey meaning. And from a very pragmatic point of view, why is multidimensionality important? It's important so that we can run one-to-n searches, 8 searches or 16 or 132 searches with one click. Now, our solution, now I'm going to talk through this because I know it's difficult to see way in the back of the room. This is the most simple form. This is our, hopefully, MVP. And it's a 2 by 2 by 2 cube. So within that cube there are 8 permutations or cells. So with one click one can obtain 8 searches. And the meta topic in this particular slide is quinoa. And the 3 domains are country, which is, and the subdomain categories within country are Bolivia or Peru. And then the retail outlets is another domain. And the subdomain categories within that particular domain are Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. And then the third domain is quality, and that's organic or inorganic. So with one click, one obtains that. Now the next slide I'm going to run through, it's on headache. And I'm going to tell you what it is ahead of time, because once we start running it, it goes really fast. But the meta topic is headache, and the 3 domains are type of headache, and treatment, and outcomes. And the type of headaches are migraine or tension, and the treatment is preventive or episodic, and the outcomes are effectiveness and safety. So let's go on to that one. Okay, the meta topic is headache, and the domains are 3, and the subdomain categories are migraine and tension under headache, preventive and episodic under treatment, and the outcomes are what are the outcomes? Effectiveness or safety? Okay, that's the one click. You get the 2x2x2 object, and we call that a knowledge object. And it's connected. It's the reason why there are so few articles is that we copied articles in order to create our own database, and we only had 60 in the database. But theoretically, it could connect to the National Library of Medicine very simply. We've done it before, like 15 years ago. So that's the demonstration. Now, the technology is not limited to a cube. There could be 1 to n dimensions. So let's look at some other types. Okay, now the problem with 1 to n dimensions is that the inner cells, the inner permutations, cannot be seen just by rotating the cube or the polyhedron. Okay, so in that instance, you need either a slicer, like surgeons use, with technology, similar technology on the body, or you need AR. And our patent calls for either. In this particular slide, we're looking at MALT1, which is a genetic variant, and MALT just stands for mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue. But it's looking at that metatopic within 3 domains. But again, the primary purpose of this particular slide is to show you again that you would need AR in order to immerse yourself in the data and see the searches that are contained within the inner cells. And then just to show you that it's not limited to just a few cells, this is an image that I used in an article that I wrote. But this shows like 220 cells. It's looking at community health workers in terms of their task and in terms of the topics, the health topics that they're competent to discuss, and in terms of the skills that they possess. But it's got 11 times, 11 rows in terms of height. It's got 5 health topics, so that's 55, and it's got 4 in terms of depth, in terms of the community health worker skills that this particular model is looking at. And obviously you would have to use AR in order to enter into this search. So, and this kind of technology is going to be mandatory if we're going to manage big data appropriately in terms of natural language processing, whether the big data are electronic health records or any other kind of industrial uses of big data. In fact, the National Library of Medicine, with their database, has huge amounts of data already. Okay, this is our team, and we use a model which is rather circular in terms of our business structure. I'm the founder and president. We have 2 co-founders, Stephanie O'Donnell. Stephanie and I started Casa de Salud in the city. I don't know how many are familiar with it, but it's a clinic for the Hispanic population. And that's where we met in 2010. And Stephanie was the first person to tell me to draw what I was talking about. Then Brendan joined the team around 2014, and he's also a co-inventor. And he attended St. Louis University, and he's also founder of another company called IntegTree. And then Mona Lisa Muncy, her Her position within the company is in process. We're adding her to the operating agreement, sending around resolutions, etc. But she's a mathematician from Iowa State, and she is especially interested in mathematical modeling and developmental theory and mathematics. So this provides her with a lot of content on which to base her research and her interest. And then our advisory committee is composed of Kathleen McCormick, and she's the author of text on pharmacogenetics and nursing informatics. And she's also been a leader within informatics at the National Library of Medicine itself and within ARC. And Ed Hayden is president of Hayden Associates, which is a risk management firm in Alexandria. And he saw initially the importance of this kind of model in terms of managing the databases associated with risk. And Michael Keating is vice president of Emerson Electric in the city, and he's a major litigator for the company. And Mark Spasser is a professional librarian and an informaticist with more than 20 years experience. And Stephen Krieger is a CPA in the city, and he's associated with, he's the controller at VJ Cement, which is a major cement contracting firm. We're self-financed today, hoping to change that. And we have a non-provisional patent application into the USPTO and PCT. And that's the Google patent site for it. And then our website is tiiko-it.com. And our market interest lately, since January, we received invitations and were accepted at 2 international conferences. Both were held here in the United States. We did not go for lack of funds. We did not budget for poster presentations. But one was at Yale New Haven and the other was in Washington, D.C. One was an NGO firm, and the other was National Teachers Computer Science Education Conference in Washington. And then SAP Software Solutions has offered us a partnership for $2,000, which we didn't accept, but it was nice to receive the offer. And then I attended the Square One Ignite course, and of course I'm presenting here today. In the past, the National Library of Medicine has said that we're within the SBIR scope for their research. The DoD is interested. We sent them a quad chart, and they sent it on to Booz Allen, and Booz Allen told the DoD that we were eligible for an SBIR. But we don't have the resources because we're self-financed in order to pursue SBIRs. And then Genoa is operated by Alexandre Frichard from Lyon, France. But he has an MBA from Harvard. But anyway, he's interested. He told us he submitted questions to us to answer, but we don't have an MVP up and running, so we can't really help him out at this time. He said that when we do develop it, to get back in touch with him. And our target markets at the present time for beta testing are the universities, students, and we know that students and faculty are interested because of some small sampling that we've put out. But they're interested in free searches through the universities. So our market would actually be the university itself, or corporations such as electronic medical record companies, or and then I think there would probably be individual researchers who would also have interest in subscribing or licensing the product. And then there's a Harvard alum launchpad application that's coming up. It would be nice to have some secretarial help with that. There's a development of an MVP1 that we need, and we ran a budget estimate on that. It's probably $25,000 to get a functional model up and running for just a 2x2x2 cube. Our MVP 2 would be with AR, and we haven't developed an estimate on that as yet. And then we would like to move forward to be introduced to the investor community in St. Louis and elsewhere. So that's the presentation. And
questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
Questions.
All right, who wants to start?
Yes.
There you are.
Hello, thank you for your presentation. I think it's amazing. And even the idea of rewriting or rethinking the way that we visualize data is wonderful. So my question in that regard is more or less this. As you started off by saying how historically we've been rating data from top down. Ultimately, with this new model or with this new approach, where do you foresee us as humans being able to interact with data?
Yeah, I see this as a way of as bridging the gap between complete AI and human-computer interaction that helps us communicate with computers more effectively. But it also addresses the problem with meaning, because we understand meaning and we talk within a certain context all the time. We talk and think within that context, and the computer doesn't. Stephen Hawking was right. So at least in the foreseeable future, I don't see computers automatically addressing meaning. Whereas when you provide multidimensional ways of framing your content that you're introducing to AI or interacting with the computer in terms of AI, then I think that helps address, it's a beginning way of addressing the issue of meaning. Now Watson answers questions very effectively, but I'm not sure that Watson could come up with his or its own framework automatically. I don't think it thinks on its own as yet. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. What other questions you got, Marianne?
Yes.
So first of all, thank you so much. This is fascinating and really blew my mind with some of these ideas. I walked in here saying, what is a knowledge object? And now I get it. Are there other people doing this? Do you have competitors in this field? I was new to knowledge objects in this way. I mean, it seems like a great way to view things, but what does the competition look like? Who else is doing this?
There's a lot of discussion today about knowledge discovery, and this would definitely facilitate that discussion. There are people who have, Oracle has cubes, multidimensional cubes, but they handle quantitative data. And mathematicians have been working with polyhedrons for a long time, but primarily with quantitative data where you have to identify the fields and what each field means, etc. The Israelis indicate that IBM has thought of this previously, but they sent the article and it's not the same. So we've looked at prior art, and we can't find anything that really mimics this. And people don't talk about knowledge objects as yet.
Thank you for the presentation. So I know a bit about Wolfram Alpha, and
Right.
that's about getting a specific answer to a question.
Right.
This I see a little bit more like being able to explore in an AR
Right.
way, potentially, a lot of information associated with the subject. Is that a fair classification of the difference of the approach of how you take this to market?
Right, I wrote to Wolfram last year and got a response back that said and I was suggesting a partnership. And I got a response back that said that our areas of interest do overlap, but because of that we can't work with you. Yeah, there's overlap, but I don't think they've gone quite this far. But they certainly have the money to do so.
Hi, Marion. Thank you very much. My questions relate to your attempts at the Small Business Innovation Research Grants, the SBIRs. Did you mention you had contact at NSF or NIH?
NIH.
NIH. I would suggest also NSF as another possibility. The other question I had for you was, have you talked to anybody like Harry Rader at CICCT?
Yes, he was saying that it's not directly related to biogeneration, to their biogeneration focus, their mission.
Okay.
And I can understand why they want to remain focused. But because this crosses disciplines,
Yeah.
that we should look elsewhere.
Well, I would recommend, after this, come and see me. So, I'm with the University of Missouri, and I help a lot of companies do SBIRs and CTRs. And over at CICCT, they do stuff beyond biotech. They do NSF. They have people in their programs that do DOD, so on and so forth. So just come see me up there.
So, and Luis always does it for everyone. He's always got office hours going after 1 million cups, so get in the line behind Marianne.
Thank you,
I will, Louis, I'll get in touch with you later.
Okay, and
Yeah.
by the way, I'm with the Small Business Development Center. It's a program operated by the University of Missouri Columbia and the Small Business Administration. And we're here to help small businesses develop and grow. We have a lot of knowledge, not just to me, but to the whole university community. So,
Right.
Luis is not only very knowledgeable, but he's very funny too. So
And he speaks Spanish.
that's why I'm having a stand-up comedy.
Thanks, Mary, for your presentation. Wondered if you could go into more of your AR, how that would
Right.
pan out. Are we including VR, virtual reality, or?
Right. We inserted it in the patent because I was down in Tampa and visited the museum in St. Petersburg when they had a Salvador Dali exhibit with AR. This was like 3 years ago. And I was fascinated because in one of the desert scenes, there were little ants crawling along the floor of the desert, which I had never even noticed before in his painting. And I got down to the level of the ants and was crawling toward the scene and just completely immersed in the art exhibit. And it was fascinating. I thought, and then Kirk Damon is here, and he's our IP lawyer. And we were talking later on, and along with Ben Siders at Lewis and Rice, and we were saying this would be perfect for entering into the truly multidimensional knowledge objects, so that we could go inside to the specific unique search, the specific permutation or cell, and click on it. And then somebody else mentioned, well, if you click on it, but you want to change a word in the unique search address, can you just look at it and change the word? Well, that technology already exists. It's what Stephen Hawkins used in order to communicate. So you could use eye tracking in order to add words or to change the specific, subject once you're immersed in the data. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Sounds so Salvador Dali-ish too. But yeah, being able to do that, and I work with museums as well, and that's one thing I like to see what museums do. Is
Right.
More engaging experiences through, AR, VR.
Right. Yes. Oh, okay.
Follow the mic. Yeah, go. You're good.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking. I think the idea is really, really interesting. You touched upon in the beginning of your, is this on?
Yeah. Should be good. Mine's back.
Okay.
There you go.
That's all right. Okay, cool. In the beginning of your presentation, you started talking about how there was an issue with receiving information from a top-down format.
Right.
And I was looking at your cube and the diagram of it. It still looks like the information
Right.
is going from top down, how, I
Right.
guess, are you pushing to get rid of that?
Right, once you get into the unique search and click on it, then the information is vertical. What's different is that at the present time, when you enter, no matter how sophisticated the filter is that you put in the search box, when the user goes into the data, the user has to deconstruct the data and put this particular citation in that box and this particular citation in another box that they have in mind before they even do the search. What this does is simply deconstruct the search for you, but you still receive the information within the cells in a vertical manner.
And there's no problem with that?
Not for me,
Okay, cool.
but yeah.
I'm just making sure I understand.
Right,
Thank you.
right. No, that was good.
Okay, one here.
Uh-huh.
Hey, I love your idea. I think it has a lot of great applications. And as a student, I see like a great amount of potential in this idea. If this were to get, completely funded and, everything is to work out wonderfully, which I hope it does, what would a finished commercialized product look like exactly? Like if I were to walk into a university library or something and use this device exactly, like what would it, what would I need, whatever to make that work?
Okay, I said that the marketplace was the university, and that's probably the place where it would be most likely used. I'm not sure yet whether we would have to, a priori, before we even license to the university, if we would have to establish licenses with the individual databases. So we would have 24/7 tech support that would help the database or the university connect the product to the databases in question. Yeah, but that's a big issue.
This sounds like a holistic research tool, and to me that makes me think of libraries.
Right.
If you want to do beta testing, pick a library, and a commercial application might be the Marketing Association. They're always doing research on who targets are, what their thought processes are, what their buying habits are, all that stuff, and that's very holistic as well. So that might be a place to actually make some money.
Right.
But the library systems, I think, the National Library Service, I'm not sure who to
Right.
contact, but I'm sure they know, once you ask the question, they can tell you where to go.
Okay, now, the National Library Service is distinct from the National Library Medicine, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you give me that information afterwards? Oh, I'll just Google it.
No, you can Google it. I also have a close relative who is actually setting up the Department of Medical Bioinformatics at the University of Arkansas Little Rock. So that might be a good connection for you as well.
Right. Thank you very much.
Could you kind of talk about your business plan, from, obviously starting with your MVP right now, kind of where you see your markets heading, think 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, ultimately, what is the broad application for this? And I know anyone, you could say anyone that uses information could use this,
Right.
but could you kind of give us a roadmap of how you see this? And obviously anything can change, but just how you envision it right now.
I think we're thinking about, if we could get into the electronic medical record business, and we do have a contact that will have a 1 million patient database that's de-identified, available in October or so. That's at Emory. And he's interested. See, the problem with big data right now is that it's taking, months, almost a couple of years maybe, to clean up the huge databases that they have. But, so that's the stage that a lot of big data people are in. But once they get the database cleaned up, then they're going to have to search the database. So if we could get into the electronic medical record business, I think we would scale up a lot faster. And that could take off within 3 to 6 years. Within universities, I would think it takes a couple months to come up with a very simple MVP1, and we could beta test within 3 to 6 universities, and from there start marketing. but it would be a harder sell. I think to scale up, it would be more difficult. If we start, however, within a university, if our research, SBIR, is from within a university, such as Mizzou or Arkansas, then we would probably scale up faster. But that would probably be 5 to 10 years before we would really, capture the majority of the market. And those are estimates off the top of my head. I don't have data to support it.
All right, one more question and then I'll...
So I guess my question is, does your product interact with, would it only work with databases? Would it, because obviously Google has such a huge amount of the search market,
Right.
and I think going that way, would it integrate with other search platforms that already exist?
We've tested on paper with Google Scholar,
Okay.
and we would love to sell to Google.
I think that's a good, because they have the add-on, they have all the add-ons
Right.
and extensions
Right.
and
There's Google Ventures, which I really haven't looked into, but I want to.
thank you.
Okay, well, we always like to end when I remember to ask, and you guys remember to remind me, with the question that you touched on a little at the end of your presentation, but I always want to give presenters another opportunity to answer the question, what can the community do for you?
I think we're lacking resources. So any introduction or networking issues that we have might be addressed by you all, and I think that would be the biggest help.
Well, you've applied for I-10, so that's a step in the right direction.
Right.
Okay. So thank you so much, Marianne. I really appreciate it. Let's give her another round of applause.